I think it's about time to do a flat Earth simplified and summarized sort of presentation. Because this is something, it's like a new science that's growing with thousands a day looking at this. I've done a few hundred hours research and 10 to 15 articles on my site. And it's had thousands of viewers and readers, and no one can really debunk it. I also said about 7-8 years ago in my first book, which is free, that we're in an information war and in the age of deceit. What I've realised is a lot of people don't really know enough about the mainstream ball earth model. People don't know how fast we spin. They don't know when the moon's coming up, what phase the moon's in. A lot of people don't know what a solstice is. So a lot of people just sort of have this image on the left of the ball earth. This image on the right is starting to gain momentum, and a lot of good information backs it up. So I just want to go through some of the key points for anyone new to this information. So as Nietzsche once said, sometimes people don't want to hear the truth because they don't want their illusions destroyed. That's often the case with a lot of new information. Around the 1400s, a lot of people were starting to think about the ball earth due to some astronomers. And then Newton came along in the late 1400s with his gravity book that he didn't really complete. It was very fat and thick. And this man's still taught to this day. He's taught as being an academic scientist, but really he was an occultist, an alchemist, and a magician. It's kind of strange how the universities don't teach much about Newton the man, especially when they're hinging massive belief systems upon him. He's also had a lot of links to Freemasonry, which came out of the Knights Templar pretty much in the 1300s. So Newton's a guy that people don't know much about, but they're pinning a lot on him. Now this is the image and the dimensions everyone believes. This is in encyclopedias, schools, universities, and it shows the diameter around 13,000 kilometers. That's a lot of curvature to get through, you know. And what I did, I started researching spherical trigonometry to work out curvature, and I worked out that this is the correct one. Now from the observer, the first mile drops 8 inches and the second mile drops 32 inches. It gets squared because we live on a ball and not a slope, and it keeps getting squared. Now if this is correct, which everyone thinks it is, then this is correct. So in 100 miles of walking along the earth, one would have dropped 6,666 feet. That's quite a lot of curvature. In 10 miles, one would have dropped 66 feet. One scientist I spoke to said I was wrong, this is wrong, and it's 8 inches per mile, full stop. And I sent him this and told him he lived on a pyramid and he should really give up science and take up golf or something. Now, curvature is really the main thing, one of the easiest things to grasp with the flat earth model. What you can see is a lot of people with amateur rockets and amateur balloons are going up, and things look very flat. And in this photo you can see the sun doesn't really look 93 million miles away. Some more horizons looking very flat. The interesting thing here is the horizon is still at eye level. Now imagine you're a flea on a basketball. It's quite hard to imagine, but try. And you're a jumping flea and you jump up on top of the basketball. The horizon would go down. It would not stay at eye level. So if the flea jumps like 5 inches up, the horizon is going to drop. This doesn't happen on our Earth. Some more pictures of flat horizon. Of course, these are just images, so you have to do your own research. This is Chicago last week from Lake Michigan. One could see the Chicago skyline from 60 miles away. This isn't possible. It should be below the horizon. Now, a lot of this footage we see from NASA and other people up there, big corporations like Red Bull, they're using a GoPro lens to curve the Earth. Obviously, that curvature we see on the picture now isn't really possible at that height. This is just Photoshop garbage. Again, the very strange curvature using the GoPro lens. And we can see with the GoPro lens corrector, everything starts to look flat again. Also, a 100-mile long bridge in China doesn't have any compensation for curvature. Also, when planes fly, they don't really keep dipping the nose down, do they? So it would really fly against the edge of space. The Earth spinning at 1,000 miles an hour, one would have thought you could take off in a helicopter, hover for an hour, land at a different space, a few hundred miles away. But what mainstream science tells us is all the air's rotating as well, all the atmosphere. So even if a breeze is going the other direction to the spin, that breeze is still moving 1,000 miles an hour. And if wind moves air molecules a little bit north, a few, 10, 20 miles north, it'll be moving at a different speed. This doesn't really add up and needs a bit of research and contemplation. It just doesn't make sense. Also, when we're young, we're shown this image. There's a lot of molten lava in the middle of the earth. But no one's ever drilled more than 8 miles down. Humans don't have the technology to do that. So you're looking at something you're never going to see. And that's the power of image. It just goes right into the subconscious. This is quite interesting as well. So the Earth rotates 360 degrees every 24 hours. That's something everyone agrees with in the mainstream model. And that we go around the sun. But if that was the case, 6 months later, we'd be the other side of the sun and still rotating 360 degrees in 24 hours. Therefore, midday should be dark and midnight should be bright light. This again might need a little bit of thought and contemplation, but it can't really be argued with. Let's have a little look into NASA. Now, they get 8 billion tax a year or so, and they're a government agency linked a lot to Freemasonry and Project Paperclip after World War II. I won't talk about the red serpent tongue there because I'm trying to stay away from too much conspiracy until later on in this. Now, NASA obviously you know the moon landings were a hoax. If you don't, then just click X and go and do something else with your day. I mean, you can see the moon's edge from 20 meters away. No stars. This is a Stanley Kubrick movie, if you do your research. There we go. It's probably something more like that. This is the image NASA give us. This is the image you see all over the place, encyclopedias, school walls, Google Images. And this image is from the 70s, from the Apollo missions. Now, there's no stars, no equatorial bulge, and there's no evidence of spin. It's quite a high technology camera that no one else has got to capture that shutter speed. There is one bit of spinning footage from NASA, a 12-hour time lapse, but it doesn't show the clouds moving, which is very odd because clouds don't stay still for 12 hours. So we haven't got any footage of the Earth spinning, even though there's the Hubble telescope, we're told, a space station and 20 to 30,000 satellites. Very strange. And no one can feel the spin. Well, we can feel earthquakes pretty well, but we can't feel the Earth spinning. Very, very odd. Here's a picture of the galaxy. Yeah, everyone believes that. And we live around the edge on the outer arm. You know, not just a planet amongst another 100 million other planets like us, in billions of other galaxies like us. Middle of nowhere, random from a big bang. That's what we're told with these images. Here we are again. Obviously, no camera's ever been out that far. Here we go. There's a nebula quasar thing going on. Everyone believes that. This is quite interesting that we can see planes around here, around this area, this amount of altitude. They look quite small in the sky, but people believe they can see satellites the size of a car higher than the top of this picture, higher than 140 kilometers, because many satellites are said to be 200-300 miles up. So I don't know what sort of Superman eyes people have got. They've got some transhumanist eye implants. Also, things that they say things go into space. I personally don't believe anything's been in space. I don't even believe space exists. But there's a high temperature, 70, 80 degrees around here, and 87 miles up. And no one's really explained how things are getting out of that heat. Here's the shuttle. Again, some crazy curvature. It's warped the picture so much that this lid's got a little bit warped. This is a funny one. This is the shuttle docking with the space station. Both going 64,000 miles an hour around the sun and 3,000 miles around the Earth. When I spoke to a scientist, he said this was due to clever thrusters. I said, surely a vacuum, the vacuum of space, would suck out all the fuel where there's an opening, where the thrusters are. And he got a bit upset because it was his life definition to be a scientist. We can also talk about spacewalks, can't we? Why would they put all the cables on the outside? Why would all these things need fixing? And how if you study spacewalks, you're really looking at underwater footage. You see a lot of bubbles in the helmets of a lot of spacewalks, and NASA actually use a training swimming pool. These are the satellites, 20, 30,000. None of them hit each other. None of them hit the space station. And none of them take any photos of the Earth. Unless you believe the weather after the news. Okay, here's a satellite, yeah, with its ray gun. That's real. If you go on Google Images, look at satellites, you're just going to find loads of Photoshop. I mean, who took that photo? So there was another satellite behind this one. Yeah, there we go. And if you look at GPS, this is a US military system. TV and other things we think we use satellites for is easily done with radio antenna. It's all done on the ground, unless you believe images like that. There's another one, bit of Photoshop. Nice thin aerials on that satellite. And that one's not CGI. That's a painting, isn't it? That's a painting. We come to the Hubble, wrapped in tin foil. It's been up there, what, 10 years? It takes photos of quasars, nebulas, dwarf stars imploding, but never turns around and takes a picture of the Earth. No pictures of the moon. kind of strange because it doesn't exist. It's a big lie. What's happening now is people are worshipping science, especially like males. They're like, oh, I'm clever, I know some numbers, and I can repeat science, and I get science updates on my tablet, blah, blah, blah. But when you get deep into the nonsense of gravity and relativity, you just come to these brick walls of crazy formula that only mad mathematical professors can understand. Children today are getting conditioned early with all these space books. My first book of space travel, Kids in Space, Space Cop Zach. It's kind of sad. They even get the Evolving Darwin playset because Darwinism, atheism, and science are religion. Have become a religion. They're being worshipped, and they're being thrown into children at a very young age. In my first book, 7-8 years ago, that's free to download, I did a big section on Darwin the man, and exposed things like this. Where he said, "To suppose that the eye could have been formed by natural selection seems, I freely confess, absurd in the highest possible degree." Now, it's obviously true that if humans went to live somewhere very cold, in 3 or 4 generations, we're going to develop DNA that can handle that a bit better. But it doesn't mean we come from sea bacteria. In this image, looks like we actually come from sea snot. Yeah, right. And a lot more people are coming out and exposing Darwinism for what it is. But it all creates atheism. I don't want to get too far into religion, spirituality in this talk, but let's have a look at atheism. The belief there was nothing, and nothing happened to nothing, and then nothing magically exploded for no reason, creating everything, and then a bunch of everything magically rearranged itself for no reason whatsoever into self-replicating bits, which then turn into dinosaurs. I personally have some questions about dinosaurs, but that's not for today. When Now we've looked at sort of debunking some of the ball earth, but when we say the word flat earth to someone, this sort of image comes into their mind, or this image, you know? It's nonsense. Ah, what? Where's the edge? You fall off the edge. People have been around the world. Da 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 da. It's a bit like if someone says the word clock to you, the image from your mum's clock when you were a kid, or the clock at school comes into your mind. It's just what comes out of the subconscious. But the model isn't this. We have the North Pole in the middle. Antarctica is all around the outside. The sun and the moon are pretty much the same size and act as like spotlights. And the sun moves in an outer spiral and an inner spiral, creating the seasons. Hence, it's always hotter at the equator, what we know as the equator. Magnetic north is always the North Pole, and magnetic south always pushes you out to the Antarctic. Another view of this, simplistic view. This is circumnavigation. You get yourself a little boat, get yourself on the BBC, sail around. Yeah, I went around the world. No, you didn't. You sort of didn't. This is a map of the flat earth. This sort of map will be growing in the next the coming years. Here's a photo, we're told, from NASA of Antarctica. Another one. I mean, that's not real, is it? I mean, really. And another one. I mean, you see better things in Hollywood, you know. So Antarctica, in the early 1900s, a lot of boats went missing, and some people's instruments went a bit crazy, and they said they followed ice wall for hundreds, if not thousands of miles. This sort of information has been recorded, and if you go to Antarctica now, you'll find the whole area protected and locked down. It's run by the Antarctica Treaty, I think from the 1950s, and you can't fucking breathe there. There are military and there are science operations. This is where the Antarctica Treaty hang out. A bit of an ice wall surrounding the Earth there. A bit of a pyramid with a capstone cut off. Oh, getting a bit conspiratorial now. Better rein it in. So if you really want to go to Antarctica, you can only really go there from these 3 points, and it's completely controlled by a tourist operator, a pyramid system really, that links to the treaty, the countries in the treaty. Now I phoned them up and said, oh, me and my mates are super rich, we're going to go to Antarctica from India and Hawaii, and we got loads of money and we got all the kit, so we'll be there soon. And I got hammered with loads of emails saying, no you don't, where's your permit, fill out these forms, who are you? I mean, this place is locked down, for real. You can go there from these 3 places and you can look at some penguins, take a few photos and off you go, and it'll cost you 10 grand for the luxury. So, you want to fly from Australia to Africa or South America? You'd fly these routes, wouldn't you, on a ball Earth? These routes don't exist. They say because Antarctica's too cold. But you can fly over Canada, Sweden, Siberia, but you can't do these flights because it's not possible. So then you'd think, okay, maybe you can do these flights. These aren't possible either. If you go on the flight sites, you will see these sort of flights you want going through Asia, Dubai, LA, and you end up with flights more like this that are the shortest way on a flat Earth. But in these flight listings, there are hoax flights. They'll say, oh, direct, South America to South Africa, hugging Antarctica. But you go and try and book it and get back to me. Oh, the seats are full. This is another key. This is Polaris, the North Star. And with time-lapse photography, you can see that, well, people think the Earth's spinning, but really, in the flat Earth model, it's the stars spinning around a stationary Earth. Now, if we were on a ball Earth going around the sun, 6 months later, we'd be millions and millions of miles away. But you can still take the same photo. What mainstream science says to answer this is that the stars are so far away that our millions and millions of miles movement over 6 months around the sun doesn't register because it's so tiny in comparison. This is a rather convenient answer to something very real we can see with our eyes. Also, most people believe that the sun is 400 times bigger and 400 times further away than the moon, and that an eclipse, where they appear the same size, is just a coincidence, really. This is a bit strange. And the old alchemists always drew pictures with the sun and the moon the same size. Now the moon's an interesting one. I'll try and cover a little bit quickly. The moon does its phases no matter what the earth and the sun are doing. It doesn't care. It doesn't care for where the earth is or where the sun is. The moon does its phases. Also, you could be in any part of the world or another part of the world, it will be new moon or full moon. It does what it does. The moon is self-illuminating. It is not reflecting light from the sun. Sunlight is gold, warm, dry, preserving, and decreases combustion in a bonfire. The moon is silver, cool, damp, putrefying, and increases combustion in a bonfire. Animals and plants react very differently to moonlight and sunlight. But the moon is a big study. I'll just leave that there. So the ball Earth is looking a bit lame. It's like it's going to get punctured soon. No one's ever seen it from that point of view. How do you know? But then people say, well, I don't really care if it's flat or round. It doesn't affect me. I've heard this a lot. But it changes a lot. Atheism will crumble. Respect for the education system and governments will crumble. Taxpayers will revolt. And if you're the centre of everything, and all the celestial worlds are going around humans on this beautiful piece of nature, things become a bit more amplified. People become a bit more careful about their lives. Their self-worth will change.